Carefully examining today's debate under the motion of this House would impoverish corruptors, I would like to deliver my 2 points of rebuttals and 2 points of arguments. Now to my first point of rebuttals. Under the leader's side of the House, the leader of opposition say that under the term of impoverish, we would make the corruptors go under the poverty line or make them go back to street as we eliminate all the asset that they have. The answer is no, because we stated clearly that we would still make it affordable for them to access normal living or like fulfilling their basic needs, food, roof, and like clothing, right? And we also have the idea of UMR. So what could people afford with UMR? Obviously not everything, and yet it is a very tight budget of living. But again, the idea of applying justice principle and impoverishing them to live as nearly as how middle income people would live is to show them how they have taken the privileges that they had before for granted. So how if they struggle? Well, the point is to make them regret what they did, right? So then they would figure it out that money doesn't come from tree, thus they have to make more for living. And this is the point that we would like to emphasize under the impoverishing idea. Now jumping to my second point of rebuttals, the opposition side of the House say that we only punish the big corruptors that trigger the states to impoverish them, right? And the answer is no, because although the exposure of big cases from the central government parliamentary is often get the most spotlight, but we also aware of the number of the small corruption that is still found in our smaller department in the government. So how to solve them? I would later explain in my arguments on how to cut off all kinds of corruptions. Now, the urgency why this impoverishing proposal emerged is that the fact that corruption in developing country, namely Indonesia, is still mentally visible even in terms of government bureaucracy, would lead us to oppose the rehabilitation idea that the opposition side of the House has proposed, because we know that we do have the rehabilitation center before, and even with that rehabilitation center, we still couldn't solve the corruption center. Therefore, we propose this proposal by impoverishing the corruptors. But the fact that corruptor is still exists is a clear proof that rehabilitation under the opposite side of the House is not as promised as what they promised us. So jump to my first argument as the idea of the danger of corruptions with this impoverishing the corruptor, we would impede the danger itself. The first danger that I would like to bring to the surface is that corruption can inhibit private investment, which will give the power for the private owner to refuse the governmental audit, and thus the government would likely have the money that's circulating in the society unmonitored, right? And this is would lead to the unknowledgeable government to determine which money goes to where, right? So this would likely promote a bigger scale of corruption if not solved. Second of all, corruption would cause individual victim and community victim. It is not that we as the government not aware of how opposition side of the House say that the innocent family is not taken care of if they are impoverished. However, do you think the family is ultimately innocent? We don't think so. Because even if they have no idea where the money or the funding come from for the family, they're also the ones who are benefited by the corrupted money itself. And if we think of the idea of greater good, it would be more impactful for us as the government to take the compensation money from the 150% that is proposed by the government to be used to funding our underprivileged community, because it is also their right to be eliminated from that poverty line. And it will gradually decrease the number of poverty itself rather than focusing on how that one family that being impoverished is struggling because they lose the funding or the stolen money that being corrupted by their family. So, link back to what I have said, private investment which lead to unmonitored government audit and protection of the bigger society would likely be achieved under our proposal. Second of all, impoverishing is the only relevant way to combat the root of corruption. Why? Because comparatively speaking, we see rehabilitation center as what proposed from the opposite side of the house is no longer relevant, because first, the rehab itself meant for those who commit terrible things that hurting themselves, whereas corruption, it put greater society in dangers. Why? Because they are fulfilling their own needs selfishly to fulfill their own needs, but ignoring the more people that harming more people that they could ever imagine. Second of all, in rehabilitation, they're only focused on finding the psychological reason of why do people commit certain things, right? And it is irrelevant if we use rehabilitation to solve any materialistic problem, because it is something inherently outside of themselves. Therefore, to link back of how impoverishing is the only way out, we have to think of what the corruptor fear most, which is bankruptcy. So taking all of their asset and their money would likely make them regret or refrain from committing corruption. So the solution that we offer is, first of all, we would like to re-emphasize again that impoverishing is not taking or putting them under poverty line, because the 150% that we gonna compensate from them, we took depends on how much they corrupt, and it still left them with the basic asset that to fulfill their daily needs. Second of all, what makes it different for the ex-corruptors? So ex-corruptor would never be allowed to go to parliamentary candidacy, and we live as community people to functioning as common society member. So the root of the problem will solve and cut deadly under this side of the house, and as we remove their source of ecstasy. Thus we are proud to propose. Thank you.